Welcome, everyone. Peace and love from the Atlantean consciousness. This is Grand Master Dr. Thor Templar, your beacon of light in a stinking feces, maggot infested life. We are the bright light that brings wisdom and gnosis to your life. Now, one of the important areas that is greatly misunderstood, and of course is the missing ingredient in all life, and that is reaching the state of gnosis. What is it? It's misunderstood. It's one of those terms. Gnostic, Gnosis, particularly the term Gnostic, is one of those many terms which is pretty much as bad as psychic because it has all sorts of different meanings and, as usual, perverted meanings by those who want to twist anything that's good like they do with any true reality out there is twisted and perverted, and the evil even take on their names. This has been done to a huge group of people and different processes and understandings, is that the Dark or Black Lodge will take on the name of the other ones, confuse everybody, and they'll say, well, you're just a Satanist. And then why are you using other names? Crowley was famous for tying in his satanic philosophy and then labeling it other things and laughing about it. And he's a prime example of Black Lodge, who then claimed the Templars, the Knight Templars, the Satanists. All those guys who spent 200 years giving their life to try and stop the onslaught of evil Islam. But they were just really Satanists. And of course, they want to claim them, and this is something that Satanists do all the time. They pervert words. In modern society, the way words are perverted are common. The most common one now is the word gay. Gay is not a term for a homosexual. And of course, you're not really gay if you're a lesbian, and if you're a transsexual, they're not really gay. Gay is homosexual males. I mean, it goes on and on and on of how the perversion of the language is done and how things are adapted for the convenience of the Black Lodge and their belief systems. So, the words are important, and it's important to look what's behind things, to watch people and their terminology. In the outer order page, we list a lot of words that are commonly used by good and bad people to tie you into different belief systems. But in general, gnosis comes from the ancient Greek, and what it is meant in the occult science world is reaching a state of knowing or truth or understanding, to put it really better. People think that when you reach a state of gnosis or all-knowing, which is a bad interpretation, it should be all understanding, and that's very important as you start to understand everything. All-knowing is kind of a bizarre and even strange term, and even stranger reality if you think about it. You know everything. What do you mean you know everything? That means you know everything in the future, you know what's going to happen. Well, that is not really true whatsoever. There is no all-knowing energy. If there was, you could call this, quote, God form type energy. And God forms are not knowing or doing or assisting. God form energies are creative energies. They make things, and it's kind of this process of making and letting whatever they make develop as that life form of intelligence decides to manifest. So there's a whole kind of free will, free energy thing that happens. It's not a God that comes in and creates a perfect universe or all these things. All those ridiculous things that are in the Bible and all these other crotch religions that come from the Middle East, which are basically perversions of ancient religions and philosophies that come from better places. really are a bunch of misunderstandings and have absolutely nothing to do with the real world, but it's all part of the slave mentality and the mental conditioning that is out there. So Gnosis is reaching the state of completely understanding. And we talk about this as being the age of understanding. And that encompasses lots of other areas, as we've talked about. It's really, understanding is the most critical area or state to be in. It's the most important state, and something that everyone of high consciousness seeks. And very, very few people find it. Very few people reach the state of Gnosis. Now, I've reached the state of Gnosis, and I don't know really anyone else that has. Reaching that particular stage is very, very high stage of development. You have to give up all society's garbage, all society's programming, what's been told to you, what's good, what's bad, and you have to stop being controlled by common urges of food, sex, and wanting to be part of society, and the social pressures that are so much out there to enslave you. So it's very difficult to reach that stage, because you then become an alien, almost an extraterrestrial, someone not from this planet, because you have surpassed the planetary thinking, the earth understanding, the earth filthy, maggot-infested feces reality that the earth is. And to reject all that, and to reject whom and what you are and part of this society, I don't know if that's what you are, to reject what this society tells you are, and to reject the fact that you are part of this world and part of this reality, is quite a step to make. People are entangled and rooted into the earth consciousness, into earth understanding, at a very strong level. After all, it's all part of the game. You got kitties, you got mates, you got all the things you need and want, and you got to protect all those things, because that's all that matters. Pretty pathetic that your life and your children and your maid is really the ultimate of what's going on in the entire world. I mean, it comes down to that, and of course you are blackmailed, controlled, and worship to do whatever is possible to maintain that kind of bullshit reality and protection. After all, you got to be bad and corrupt, because you got to take care of your family. They're going to come after your family, and of course that's what they do. The famous case with Cheech and Chong, the comics, whose son was selling water pipes, which could be smoked anything in it, but put his father's face on it, was then busted by, we don't got money for medicines. We don't got money to house the poor. We don't got money to take care of the sick. We got money to bust Chong's son because he's got a picture of Cheech or Chong on there. And what they did is they had absolutely nothing on his father, because his father had really nothing to do with the business. That was his kid's business, and why not? He was selling water pipes. They went to him and said, well, we're going to put your kid in prison for 20 years unless you come forward and take the rap. That's what your police do. They are on the streets getting the Bloods and the Crips. No. There are thousands of them. And they have guns. They ain't out getting the cartels. They got guns. And all these people are paying these copperonis. No, they shoot your buddy, your friend, some small timer in the back on the street. And that's okay. Because you got to take care of your kids. So the reality is that's how everything works. They blackmail what you have. So you can't have things of value in life if you expect to live the impeccable path. And the impeccable path goes beyond all this. And very few people can reach these particular levels. I mean, certain orders tried this. And of course, as a group, which is the only way to survive, otherwise known as a gang, and you have to be a member of a gang or you don't survive and you can't follow the impeccable path. Um, that's the reality of it all. So you have all these constraints in life, all these problems in life that keep you rooted to earth consciousness, which is the lowest level you can really reach in the universe. Basically, the earth has the most lowest mentality species ever known. At least that predominant species here, which was manipulated and created by extraterrestrials, obviously.
No, some dude came along and snapped his fingers and they popped out of the dirt a few thousand years ago.
If you want to live in those kind of stupid fantasies with the vulgar pigs that are religious, well, I don't know if there's any hope for you whatsoever. You know, the Jews who have animal sacrifices and think they're God's chosen people, otherwise known as Judeo-Nazism. You listen to a Jew and you think you're talking to Adolf Hitler. And, of course, the psychotic Islam who wants to kill everybody so they can keep their own gang going, and the psychotic Christians who basically believe the exact same thing, except they're the race of cowards that do nothing while they are murdered in the thousands all around the world. Christian children's heads are cut off in Indonesia. That's okay. We pray. You know, the dead Jew on the stick who did nothing. So we get into this level of understanding of overcoming all these infantile, sludge-level, feces, maggot-driven understandings that everyone has into a realm of understanding everything. It's different than knowing everything. I mean, there was a TV show, one of my favorite shows, that was based on this, called John Doe. A really excellent show. It's really, I highly recommend it. You can find John Doe on the Bastion of Freedom, YouTube, who wants to not put anything up that's owned, yet 90% of YouTube, 99% of YouTube is all other people's material. But they don't have the money. They don't have billions and billions of dollars that they make every year to do any type of policing whatsoever. Yet that's what they stand for. And of course they went to court, and the judges say, what you're doing, YouTube, is okay, you and Google. Can I cash your check now? I'm a thug. A thug. That's what they call judges. Thugs. So you do have to understand that reality. So the whole idea is that when you know everything and surpass everything and have given up the common world stupidities and understand that you are not part of this world, you have nothing to do with this world, you don't think like these rodent, maggot-headed freaks think, you don't think like any of them, and you reach the state of Gnosis. And, you know, doing that, as I said, is very difficult, rejecting society's stupidities and reaching this level of all wisdom and all knowledge. But it's not about knowing. Now, in the TV series John Doe, he knew everything. The population of Tennessee in 1923 was 6 million. Well, what is the value of knowing that? Every single thing that was a fact or knowledge that was assumed, basically, as I always state things, all the information out there that's produced by society, he knew. Down to statistical data, sales records, you name it, he knew it. Well, that's basically just being a walking, I guess you could call it computer or encyclopedia or whatever. That is not Gnosis. Knowing information is not Gnosis. Gnosis allows you to seek out knowledge and find it and know it's real. And that in itself may sound to you, well, that don't sound like much to me. Well, that's the key to everything. The key to everything is understanding what is real, what works, and how to apply it in your life. That is Gnosis. Now, the problem with everybody is you go to so-called authorities, experts, and they tell you what they believe. Now, if you're a person of Gnosis, you know if what they're telling you is right, or you can go then check if what they're telling you verifies to be right. And there's nothing more important than having that ability to know what is right, what works, what is real, what is not a sales item, what is not there designed to mislead you, to take your money out of your pocket. How do you know this? I mean, you go there, you spend your money on any service or that is, and there's an assumption, because that person may be licensed or is an expert, that you are getting something of value from it. Well, I'm afraid that that's not the case. Licensed professionals in all fields generally are nothing more than seeing you as a dollar sign. What can I get after you? Lawyers want to make simple, easy cases, and they want to do lots of them where they can make $3,000, $4,000 off of people and do 10 a week instead of getting involved in anything that really takes work. Because generally all the work in a law office is done by the secretary. It's almost entirely the same things are written in every single legal case. The only thing different is they substitute your name for somebody else's. So it's pretty much boilerplate, as the terminology goes, of what law is. Then that's given to the court, and then whatever. They want to drag things out. They want to make sure there's plenty of work for themselves. And this is how things work. They don't want complicated cases. You see the silliness that these egotistical or showboating lawyers do on celebrity cases, where they seem to cry for their client, want to help them and everything else. Of course, there are $1 million price tags to go with these as well. Literally, that's not an exaggeration. Millions of dollars for your defense on these big teams. So they may be working with you and crying for you and helping you the best they can, as long as you're writing very large checks to them. Millions of dollars of checks. So these are all part of the process. Most attorneys are just using you as a part of this process and telling you what's going on. And I've seen this time and time again in legal cases, from accidents and personal injuries, where they act like we don't know what we're getting, and then they've really already made deals with the insurance company. They don't know exactly what you're going to get, how much you're going to get, and how much they're going to take of it. And if this is under $2,000 or $3,000, they don't want to have anything to do with you. $500, $1,000, what does that mean? Even if it's easy money, they're not interested in it. They want to make thousands. So if you have any really justice need, or even if you're right and it isn't a big money case, they have no interest in you whatsoever. The same thing goes with doctors and so forth. This is plain and simple as your money. How many operations can they do on you that they know the insurance company will pay, so they can make lots of money off of you? And in the end, they don't give a rat's ass whether you even survive. And if you're in pain or traumatized, oh well, that's just the way it is. That's medicine. If it had worked out perfect, you would have been a lot better. We all know that that would never happen anyway. So what does all that actually mean with the fact of... So the point is, when you're at a state of Gnosis, you know when you're being led on by liars and deceivers, and what is the real story, so that you go in pre-understanding what is happening, so that you know how to, at the very least, survive horrible situations, and hopefully never get into them to begin with. Which is difficult as well. Things come up in life. People get ill. You get into car accidents. Things happen. And you seek out people who are nothing more than seeing you as a walking dollar sign. And let's get quite real, law cases are just as serious as going in for major surgery. A bad law decision can ruin your entire life. Maybe in some cases much worse than a bad operation, which may be able to be repaired in the future, while legal decisions may never be able to be repaired. And if you're sitting in prison for the rest of your life, or paying huge bills or money to someone, That could be a lot worse even than having your body racked with pain or other things. So, reaching a state of gnosis is being able to seek out, understand what is real and what's not real. So when someone writes a book on metaphysics or psychic power and you read it, you're able to pick out of there what has value and what doesn't. Is there something new that person has? So the whole idea is you want to see if there's something in any literature that is offered in a metaphysical occult science area that has any value. It's not about just collecting information. I've done this for over 30 years, and it's all garbage. There's virtually nothing of value out there. And the people that write this, particularly in modern times, in the last 10 years where metaphysics and occultism, which is so shunned by society, has become a huge market. The psychic commanding, the NLPs, the psychic sexual command type things out there, all of these are huge industries that people are paying a lot of money for. And people don't think that's the case because it's kind of the dirty little secret that nobody talks about. But there are huge amounts of these books out there, and they are now being created by the same hucksters that used to create everything else. And these are being sold online, and there's absolutely nothing there. So it's not even necessarily the cost. If you spend $29 or $39 or $59 or $69 or $299 for something, the bottom line there is that, well, that's maybe money lost. And we've all gotten stuff that is worthless. And you say, okay, but, you know, if you were able to do that after reading it, you're lucky. But if you took the time and energy to actually work with these systems and found out how vacuous garbage they are, you've been robbed of a lot of your life energy that you can't get back. So, you know, this is the minefield I always talk about in terms of the fact of what is of value and not of value. And you don't know until you reach a certain level of gnosis, or you reach gnosis, then you can judge things. Now, all of those listening to my voice here, almost none of you will ever reach gnosis. It's just a reality out there. It takes a very special type of person. And I think it takes a special type of life from birth, which I've had a very unique and socially alienated life, and always have thought in a particular, very different way, and always questioned everything about society, their teachings, and there's not a single thing that I've ever accepted through my entire life. I don't like how things are done. I don't agree with how things are done. This goes on every single level. I've seen every single process pretty much done by society that can be done better, easily, and more efficiently. Nobody cares. We've done it like this for 200 years. Well, I don't care if you've done it since the beginning of time, 10,000 years, 10 million years. If it can be done better, do it better. That's heresy in this society, because you're shaking up the cookie cart of those in power who don't want to do anything better because they're making plenty the way it is, feeding to the stupid masses who will slurp down the biggest crap as long as it's told to them it's wonderful. Put a designer label on it, and it's the best crap you've ever had. They did these kind of tests with water, which came right out of the hose out of the back of the restaurant, filled up in fancy bottles, and asked people, what was this? And it was all the same water, and they said how wonderful this fancy water was. Now, there's a problem with that, because what are you supposed to say? This don't taste good? Well, I would. The average person's not going to say, well, Perrier tasted like a goat shit. I've had piss better. Coors beer, you could say that about, particularly anything in the can, is horrible beer. Oh, it's special, don't got no preservatives in it. It's garbage beer, but of course, like most beers, if it's on draft, it's not bad on draft. But almost all canned beers are really horrible. Canned or bottled, just really taste bad. But nobody's going to say that, because if it's popular, you're going to say what the rest of the idiots say. And if it costs more, it's damn good. I didn't spend $25 on this bottle of wine to say that it's bad. So it takes a very special type of person, a person who doesn't care about that, a person who looks at things in a different way. And this is what a person who reaches a Gnosis does. You know everything. You understand everything. You see things in a completely different light, and as such can judge it from a non-biased position. Now, regardless of what you paid for something or not, or whether everybody in society says it's wonderful when it's not. And things are good because they're expensive or have designer labels on them. And why is that? Is quality denoted by that? Well, oftentimes it is. Things that tend to be expensive tend to be better. And sometimes there's real reasons for that. But there's also a big difference. A lot of things are just mediocre that are expensive. The key to any great product, really, is you get very much value for your dollar. Is it something of great quality, yet is it fairly priced? I mean, technically anything that's expensive should be of very high quality. And oftentimes they're not. So you're buying something and making somebody rich on the illusion, and he sold you a bill of good. He's lied to you just like occultists lie all the time, that these little mental techniques and these little things in their little emails that they send you, the little email courses that they regurgitate by the hundreds every year, that they then sell to you. What do they care if 10, 20, 50% even return them? It costs them absolutely nothing, and it's super high product. Anytime you put out an e-product, the cost of that is negligible. It's virtually nothing. But how are you supposed to know? How do you know when you buy a product that it's any good? You assume someone selling something online has, for some reason, is an expert, and they're not lying to you. Well, that in itself is a bad assumption. As we get further into the reality that we live in, everything is really based on money and the only thing that anybody cares about is taking your money, putting it in your pocket, and if you're not good for tomorrow, who gives a damn? They'll find somebody else, so as long as they've got your money today. So someone who's totally in tune with and has reached the level of Gnosis, the understanding of all, is able to read something and say, well, this sounds interesting. This part of it's good. This sentence is good. This word may be good. And oftentimes it even comes down to that. If I read a book and find anything of value in it, that is a miracle in itself. If there's a paragraph or a few pages, well, that's wonderful because I've read it all before. And I also know those people that seem to be lying and are telling you fables and have nothing behind it. Well, what does this mean? And what does it mean in the bigger picture when you have all this information behind you? When someone makes a statement, well, where is the proof of that? And so many times, and there are realities to it, is that things are difficult to prove because of social pressures. If you have something that heals people, well, this is difficult to prove, because you can't really go out there because they will come after you. On the other hand, that leaves the market open for people who are complete and total frauds to sell you a dream bill of goods. And this has often been done in things from anything from garlic to calcium, which are all good for you, but they certainly are not miracle cures. And they have touted these in the past. About 10 years ago was the calcium fad. And of course, the people in Okinawa live so long because they have a high calcium diet, which is completely and totally bogus. It's a lie. They don't have a high calcium diet. And they, by the way, they eat a lot of pork. That's the facts that they didn't tell you there. Oh, no, it was just a sea diet and they got all this rich cows. Total, complete nonsense. Not to mention their whole society structure and the fact that their Asian diet in general, which people tend to live longer on. So it's just a lie. Now, a person who is tapped into or has achieved the state of Gnosis reads something and doesn't read the vulgar language, doesn't understand the words as they were meant to be projected at you to create images within your mind. They understand, and the images are created that is absolute understanding and truth, and not the projected image of the liar or the over-exaggerated statement. And this is part of life. Nobody's interested unless you can tell them that if you use this particular product, you're going to fly like Superman. Oh, yeah, I'll get that. And apparently, there seems to be no problem with that kind of marketing, and people buy into it and are happy, and then apparently don't complain because they say, well, you know, wouldn't have been great if it's true. So what have I thrown away 50, 100, whatever it is? And people get rich off of this while they chuckle at you. But if you have reached the state of Gnosis, you know what's good and you know what's bad. So if you can't reach that state yourself, which is highly unlikely, then that means you're dependent upon somebody else who does, and the information that comes from that organization. And that's what's so valuable about being part of and participating with, and hopefully you're an outer order member at the very least that's listening to this, to get that inside information which will save you a world of trouble, wasted study, and blowing of your money when you are guided to resources that apparently seem to have some value to them. And that's why it's very important to listen to what the Guild says in its audios and what we show and offer to people, and in the way that we actually do that. And it's difficult testing everything, but we try and tell people, well, does this have value? Or not? Instead of, everything is information. Everything's someone's opinion. Oftentimes that opinion is totally biased to the point of just taking money out of your pocket, and many times it's written by an ignorant buffoon who thinks they know something because some other idiot lied to them and they believed it. I look at that in bibliographies of books and I said, well, now we know where you got your information from. So basically you read a bunch of other people's books and you put together your own. Of course, that's how things work. Everyone does that, unless you create it from the beginning yourself. And there's virtually no new ideas, period. There's virtually nothing that's new out there. There's variations of already established things. So there isn't that many new things, period. But the point is, can you use something in a different way? One of the worst people, and you can always tell people that have absolutely no gnosis whatsoever in them, is when they start quoting a bunch of other people in their books. These people that have these endless, numbers next to somebody's name. You have to go down at the bottom of the page and read,
Joe Smith wrote a book on how water shot out of his ass and he flew through the moon.
And they keep referencing other people's statements. Well, I don't need to do that. I could have read that own book myself. I don't need you to tell me what other people's opinions are. You were supposed to interpret these things, find out if this is real, and give your own opinion of it. And I've seen this particularly with the boring, monotonous, snail belly level of Satanists, particularly the writings of the Templar set, where they want to sound intelligent and start quoting all these people throughout history and using cliches from all these other ones. And Plato said, and Shakespeare, while he was shitting on a tuffet on his muffet, drinking a cup of tea. I don't care. It makes no value to it. That's not what I'm reading a book for. I'm reading for people to make conclusions, come up with new ideas, or in some way interpret this information. I don't need you to quote what somebody else says. I can figure that out myself. That's not what I'm reading your book for. I'll read their book then. Fuck it. Those are the most detestable books I've ever seen. That's something to watch for. Who cares? Putting a bibliography in a book is just saying, well, here's where I got all my information from. If you really want to get the true sources of information, read all the books in the back, not my book. Well, that's really what they're saying, aren't they? Who cares where the information comes from? There's no credibility because somebody else wrote a book that you read and then interpreted. And then you go ahead and not interpret it correctly. You put down what they said in those books, and basically what you've done is got a bunch of books, take a bunch of information out of it, and then put it in your book. Oh, so you're basically just kind of the Reader Digest of writers. Of course, people probably don't know what that is, but Reader Digest was, they gave you 10 or 15 books a month that they condensed down because they cut out all the stuff you didn't need, all the content. What is that? That shows a person has absolutely no gnosis whatsoever. The whole idea of reading other people's information and so forth is that's supposed to trigger higher consciousness or gnosis reactions to it to say, that's interesting, but this really means this. No, they were off here. This is what they really mean. This is how you can apply it. This has value. This is junk. This is total crap. This makes no sense. That's what you're supposed to do, and that's what gnosis is. And of course, everybody assumes that everyone who sells you something is doing it for the good. They believe in it. They think it works, or they know it works. After all, it speaks highly of it on the package. And this somehow gives it credibility. That's quite the opposite. I mean, what are they supposed to? Well, the information in this book may or may not be correct. I kind of did research. I went to a lot of the top libraries where I could get free books and sat around, and I even ordered a couple of books through the library system. And, of course, then I read them and took them verbatim from there. I didn't really interpret any of it. Well, guys, that's happened. It happened. I just recently read this book like this on radionics. 21st century radionics. This guy knows absolutely nothing, and quotes throughout his book all sorts of other people that themselves knew absolutely nothing, that there was no proof that anything they ever did worked, and he's citing them as factual sources. The blind leading the blind. Stupid is as stupid does. Now, as a kid growing up, hey, teacher, I want to learn. And you have to believe what they tell you. I don't know if you have to believe it, but you're forced to learn it, and then you're forced to regurgitate the lies in a test, so you've been confirmed to be an idiot, because that's what society wants. Brainwashed idiots. And I'm a degree brainwashed idiot. Look at my certificate. I was able to say the stupidest things possible, just like they taught me. Now, this understanding is how we all go through, but there has to be a stage where the student becomes the teacher. Yeah, you take in the basic information, you consider that as what it is. That's information, maybe good information, for the time being, for now, here, and what you know. It's information, which is opinion. It is not gnosis. Your gnosis kicks in to confirm whether this has any validity whatsoever. And if you're finding that things have validity in most of what's out there in the popular world, then you are really in trouble, because it's 99.9% crap. So, the ability to understand what is going on, and that understanding to lead you to truth is what Gnosis is all about. Not knowing everything.
I'm going to go to the Akashic record and learn how to make dumplings like they were in 1762, made in France.
That is nonsense, and that's not how the Akashic record works. You are able to access and remind yourself and remember and connect to high streams of consciousness and truth when you reach a particular state of gnosis, not knowing everything, having a bunch of computer data in your brain. The population of Alaska is 3,416,000. Well, why the fuck is that any importance whatsoever? Has no value to you whatsoever. The fact that you would even know that, this is what used to bother me about the trivia rages in the 80s and 90s. Oh, everybody was playing trivia. Gilligan's Island. The professor was really from what state? What was Mary Ann's name? The fact that you know that and watch such trash crap and remember that Mary Ann was from Wisconsin is revolting. And I used to tell people this, and of course,
oh, you're an asshole. I know all that.
Yeah, but you don't know anything about health. You don't know anything about healing. You don't know anything about politicians. You don't know anything about the law. I know that Mary Ann was
from Wisconsin.
Well, slap my face, stick a popsicle stick up my ass, and call me Peter. That's wonderful. So you have to be dependent upon those that can do this, and hopefully you will reach at least a certain stage of gnosis where you can figure out in your own life who's telling you a tale. And one of the biggest problems is people following so many people that they give credit to that deserve no credit whatsoever, based on a lot of silly symbolism and foolish beliefs that some way this person has power or knows something because they said it, didn't they? He told me he's a godlike man. The fact that he cleans carpets for a living, has an ugly wife, and he doesn't at all been able to achieve anything in his life, and is a criminal. What does that mean? He's a genius. Really? Well, all this stuff is nonsense. And then you get the intellectuals.
Well, I'm going to read the, I've read the Kabbalah, every 45 volumes of it written in the ancient Hebrew. Them scholars are sat around all them time sacrificing animals and watching their people by the millions be burned to death. Them geniuses of power. That King Solomon, he did a lot. The great Jewish empire had all this great magic.
And what happened to them?
Well, the Romans came in and killed every single one of them and took over their country. They were enslaved for 600 years in Egypt. And, with all that, they still were able to write these hundreds of volumes of Kabbalah shit.
I guess you have a lot of time when you're a slave living in the desert for 40 years wandering about. So all these things are quite nonsensical. But even to listen to things like I've stated here and to understand them without being angered or being upset is all part of really, can you handle truth? And most people can't handle it. Can you handle the truth? I don't think so. Or what is, you can't handle the truth? The Jack Nicholson statement and that goofy film. And it goes on and on. People want to veneer things. They want to look at things in a society-proposed way. The military, they're serving our country. That's a military guy. Oh? Well, that's interesting, because they're not working for food and board. They get a salary, and they're taken quite good care of. Not only that, they volunteer now. It's a fucking job. And they have a job that involves killing other people for political government. They're government murderers. Now, in this society, if you plan to murder somebody, or you're involved to murder somebody in some way and someone is murdered, it's just the same as murdering that person yourself. Few people understand that Charles Manson never murdered anybody. He's been thrown into prison for life on conspiracy to murder. He supposedly told somebody else to do things, which really isn't true, and that's another story, but so the point is that military men who are there to get educations and to make money aren't working for free. They aren't working to help the country. It's a fucking job that they went to, applied for. In many cases, it's not easy to get because there's a lot of people who want those jobs. And they're working for governments who are politically murdering other people in other countries for no apparent. There's no attack on anywhere. There's really very few even wars that have happened in the last almost 50 to 60 years that have anything to do with one country invading another. Most of them are civil wars. These are government murderers, and they should be treated as they are and spit upon because of the vulgar failure shit that the American and all militaries of the world are. There's only two types of military people I've ever met, and that's the cowards that hide and the psychos that kill. Oh, is that too much Gnosis for you to get out there? That's truth. It doesn't take much investigations to find out how corrupt and fucked up and what losers and bad military leadership has been out there for the last 100 years, and that really hasn't been a one war in the United States history since the Revolutionary War, who at the end of it, the Continental Congress, those slave-owning white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Masons who were so concerned about their own personal freedom and who were all slave owners, yeah, it was good for them. They formed their little club, and that's all they were involved with. A constitution that was written by apparently a Jewish guy out of North Carolina who was copied by Jefferson. Word for word, by the way. And, but of course, let's not speak of the facts here. That confuses everybody. So, being able to understand what's really happening and to be then led to, well, I understand that this isn't right. So what you do is you do some investigation. It's amazing how things are not hid very much because nobody does any research, and even if they do research, it doesn't mean much. The information is there and people just ignore it. They believe what's in those silly little books told by those filthy, rotten teachers who don't do anything except play little Hitlers in their classrooms because that's what they're into, while they're scamming on who they can screw in their classes, which are notorious. And most of these cases ain't the guys. It's all these sick little women who apparently are nothing more than pedophiles. And if there's a few cases of these, there's thousands of these. Oh, but it's only the guys, of course. And, of course, we have trouble people learning, and, of course, that's the kids' problem. It's not those idiot teachers who've done absolutely nothing and helped nobody. Oh, well, they do help the gifted students so they can help them get into better schools because, after all, that's real easy. Help them? What do you mean help them? Fill out their college applications to get into it and say that they recommend them? Well, the poor other struggling people who need help, they ignore. How many times have I seen that, you scumbucket teachers? Oh, but they're great. They're doing all they can to help everybody. Yeah, they made a movie of that called Waiting for Superman. And the reality is that all these people that can't get their kids trained and they can't get help are waiting for the Superman principle, or somebody's going to come from the sky, scoop down, and help them. I'm afraid that ain't going to happen, people. Not until you reach Gnosis and get rid of the filth that is causing that. Those pot-ridden feces that need to be removed from our systems. Oh, those expert translators. You know, those OTO translators? Those people who lived in a crowley-eyed Black Lodge reality are translating things for you now, who are nothing more than sick little homosexual perverts. And I have nothing against homosexuals, but these peoples are the deviant factors that will work with the Black Lodge, who do all these translations now. And, oh, by the way, they don't really translate. They interpret other people's translations. Oh, I forgot, yeah. Who then state in their translations, I don't guarantee my translations. Unbelievable crap that's out there. So the whole idea is that you have to depend on people and be connected to organizations and people who are connected and who have reached the stages of Gnosis. And quite frankly, there is no other organization other than the Guild, and there may be some good-meaning people, like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But they haven't reached there. They have nothing new. They're looking back all the time. They have no interpretations. You want to find somebody who has no Gnosis, who basically is a person who will easily drift into, or if not is in, the Black Lodge, is that they don't have anything new ever to do. Since we haven't come out with so many things in recent years, pretty much all the occult has been dead because nobody's copied us. In the recent years, everybody's copying us yet again. Of course they are. They have no creativity. Comes from Gnosis abilities and achievements, and very few people have creativity or have anything new to offer because they're working from the old, the stale, the putrid, and the rotting. It's old, it's good. Well, why is any of that good? What are we talking about? Most old societies have all been horrible. So, reaching that state, even if you don't reach the state, the whole idea is to be working towards getting to a point of understanding, of things clicking in your head telling you, well, this makes sense, but it makes sense for now and here. I'm open to changes. I'm open to proof. And what proof do you have? I'm a little sick and tired of hearing everybody's statements of how wonderful things are when there's absolutely no proof of this. And people who are constantly making outrageous claims that these things don't do anything near it. I mean, it's very typical of info commercials on TV which exaggerate the abilities of a product. And when you get it home, you have to be a master to get that, or it doesn't work like that at all. It's just garbage down to the lowest level, down to supplements that do everything for you. You alkaline your body with calcium and you never get any viruses because viruses can't grow in calcium. Well, this is true, but if your body took in huge amounts of calcium, your arteries would immediately harden and you would die. You can't take in a lot of calcium. Most calcium is unbiologically assimilable. Oyster shells and all this stuff, which is pure calcium, you cannot take into your system. You're wasting your money getting in. It's very typical of supplements that are worthless. It's not what you take, it's what you assimilate. You can only assimilate 100 milligrams of vitamin C It may be a day, I'm not sure if it certainly is not much more than a few hours. So if you take more than 100 milligrams at one time, the rest of it goes down the toilet, unless maybe you get some results from time released, where it releases it slowly and the body can take more in. But it's not what you take, it's what you assimilate. So these are Gnosis statements. They're facts that are proven. Everybody knows this. You don't know it because some salesman told you something else. And you believe it. Because after all, that guy's trying to help you. No, he's trying to take money out of your pocket, plain and simple. Just like the doctors, the lawyers, and everybody else are. They're not anywhere there to help you. When you go to a doctor, he doesn't give a shit about you. He gives a shit about your insurance. So it's very important to understand that. And so if you go to people and you get their technologies and different things, we're finding now, we've warned people of these things of getting diseases and cold problems. Well, we're now finding that people are being possessed by the energy and spirits sent by people who have been vampiring and trying to control them to get their money. Now, we've overlooked this in the past because technically it's not a curse. When we check people, do you have a curse on them? It comes up, no. Of course, we do pick up highly cross conditions, but people are actually now getting possessed by these evil people, and they're being, by using and combining and communing with their products, they are being affected by these evil people that have nothing to value you for except your buck. So that's how dangerous it is dealing with people that are just suckering you. And, we all get suckered. We all get into traps. The whole idea is that, you have to be aware of these things and you have to be working on Gnosis. Gnosis also goes down to your personal practices. If I do this, if I use this formula, it'll be good for me. Because you are now understanding what is good for you personally and what works in your personal life. That's very important. Our courses, our traditional sorcery course, has many, many formulas. Which one is good for you in your situation right now? We don't know that. You have to figure that out. And you don't figure that out from what I tell you. You figure that out from your ability to understand or channel in Gnosis, at least in a tiny bit for your tiny own situation. You need to be able to do that. And you need to be able to know what's good and bad for you personally on some level with the help of others. If you're going to buy a bunch of goofball stories and people who put up silly little ads and YouTube videos, and for some reason that's going to entice you when you don't bother to look up who they are, what they're involved in, what they're doing, what they've achieved, and you're going to send them all this money based on what? And if you don't have the Gnosis to understand how to use products right, how to adapt them into your entire life, then you're not going to even get it. The product may even be good, but maybe you can't figure it out because you ain't got no Gnosis. You're trying to follow the 1, 2, 3 step of life, which is following instructions, and somehow this is going to make all your dreams come true. Well, generally that doesn't happen. There are big gaps in between there that Gnosis will tell you how to use, how to apply, and what is real for you, because what is real for one person may not be real for you at all. You have to see things different. You have to reject the common world thinking, the psyched up news media. Oh, this happens. We should be all upset. These people are killed. These people are dying. Well, what does that mean? It means that they're sending you up, they're putting you going, they're pushing you along a path because they profit from it. There's nothing else to it. 2,000 years of churchianity, and what has it brought us? Have they solved any problem? Well, the Vatican is worth trillions and trillions of dollars. They've done well for themselves. They live like the pompous pigs they are in their palaces in the Vatican. And churches all over the place, which seem to be worth a fortune. And what does the average person have from that? What? Nothing. So, we need to be actively involved in the understanding process, and as we seek to understand and as we seek higher intergalactic knowledge, not earth-based knowledge, and I'll talk further about that in another audio, you will find Gnosis and truth and everything that you need. Now, this will not bring you happiness, because knowing what's real and what's fake is not a pleasant path to be, because this world is all fake. You're living in a often, which was talked about as fake, plasticky world. Well, everything is fake and plasticky in the world, including all the belief systems, all the churches, all the doctors, all the lawyers, all the police, everybody in they're all plastic, fake scum buckets that have no value. Which is another reason why Gnosis is only for a select few that can handle it and further understand the process. Most people are happy to be stupid and dumb, and are very happy to not only ignore the facts, but embrace corruption, because they're taken care of by it. Plain and simple. So I think that's enough for now. As I always say, there is no reality until the occult scientists created. Question everything. Believe nothing, question all authority, trust absolutely no one. Learn it, do it, be it, and let the guild be your guide.